Welcome to another episode of OG55. We are reacting to yet another Hey Brickey video. I haven't seen this video yet. The Italiano has. I'm watching it, reacting to it for the very first time. We're going to talk about it, break it down like we usually do here on the channel. Good little nice reaction video. Thank you so much, Italiano, for joining, and thank you all for joining us as well. Up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to the Black Shirt Club. No, I'm kidding. Welcome aboard, everybody, to OG55. We are, like I said before, reacting to another great Hey Brickey video. But before we dive into our reaction, I want to introduce George, the Italiano, looking sharp as a fuck. George, George, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, doing good. During the time of this recording, today had some crazy weather conditions. We had some tornado warnings in my area that we had to take shelter and take cover, but all is well. No damages, no nothing. Everybody's safe, so that's always a good sign.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, that is good to hear. That's very good to hear, George. I'm glad that you guys are safe and everything's okay. And like, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. You guys, you got like a warning and you guys went into your basement or whatever?
Yeah, so they sent us the warning notifications over our phones, and they have it on the TV for the areas that are going to be possibly impacted by the tornadoes. And they ask you to take shelter. If you have a basement, you go down into the basement. If you do not have a basement attached to your house, to go into a smaller room where there's no windows, but there is very short distance between wall space. So basically, that's basically like a bathroom.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that was an option. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, good to hear that you're safe. And George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. And before I do, the bathroom would be the best place, because if a tornado was ripping off your house, the toilet would be the best place for you to be. Just
right.
saying.
Exactly. I keep thinking about that. I keep thinking about that scene in Jurassic Park. You remember where the whole thing?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, he lifts up and he's sitting on the toilet. It's like he was at the best place.
Right, exactly.
But if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And we just did a Citrus Corner recently where Slimer had joined us as well, where we covered some interesting topics of maybe possibly like the Fox acquisitions coming into the Disney park. So definitely check that out.
Absolutely. I'll be linking that at the very end, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's dive in. We got Mr. Hey Brickey, and look at this. See this like button right here, everybody? Yeah, smash it, just like OG did. Smash that like button for Hey Brickey. So again, fantastic content creator, friend of the channel, Brickey. He created a video about 10 Disneyland Forward teased lands. What's real, what's not. George, we're going to do as we always do. We're going to play the video, pause along the way, talk about it. Here we go.
Friends, do you remember at the very beginning of the announcement of Disneyland Forward, where all the details were real vague and muddy? And it almost looked like Disney had this wild idea of making a theme park out of the two parking lots and the narrow space between the hotel. Yeah, I thought that was a horrible idea, and I don't think that's going to come true. What seems to be way more realistic to me, and what I've been predicting in the Disneyland Forward series over here, is that we will see an extension of both DCA and Disneyland. Just extending the parks we already have, making them bigger, not trying to make a convoluted third gate. Now, I do believe there will be a third gate, but that's going to be down at the Toy Story parking lot.
Yeah, well said. That's exactly, yeah, that's the Toy Story lot makes a lot of sense for a gate, right? Like a theme park. You're never going to have 75 acres in one spot like that in Anaheim
that you already own.
That you already own, right? That's why when people are like, oh, it's going to be another Disney Springs, I'm like, they're not going to waste 75 acres on a retail shopping district. And then the argument that I hear a lot when I mention that is, well, they can add a hotel. Well, if you build a theme park, you can add a hotel too.
Exactly.
And it incentivizes people to actually stay an extra day in those hotels when you have a theme park, because there's more theme park, more stuff, more rides. It's going to be a theme park, but
and especially since the Toy Story parking lot is further down the road, that it's more disconnected to the actual Disneyland resort. So to add a hotel to that third gate, not only would it drive in more business to stay on property, but it would also allow those guests to stay there to be adjacent to that theme park.
well, Epic Universal's doing it right now with their Epic Universe. I mean, it's kind of a similar idea. If you build a theme park and maybe like a hotel nearby the Toy Story lot, you could fit all that in over there. I mean, that's kind of what Epic Universe is doing. You know, it's a few miles down the road from the main resort. So, you know, it's something that, like, I think Disneyland should really keep an eye on the Epic Universe thing and how that pans out for Universal, because that might be kind of like a weather balloon test to see how that might work out here. What works, what doesn't, and what have you. So absolutely. And then he's right. Brickey's right. The Stitch parking lot and the Simba parking lot will definitely be extensions, I think, of the current parks. I think the DCA extension will definitely come first. If it doesn't come first, we got some major problems, because Disneyland has gotten a lot of big stuff in the past few years. I mean, Galaxy's Edge wasn't even that long ago. I mean, we're only talking 5 years ago. That's really not that long ago. They just got a reimagined Toontown, another big e-ticket with Mickey and Minnie's. It's time to show DCA some love. I understand we got Avengers Campus, but that was a pretty moderate investment. DCA needs another big e-ticket, some big draws into that park, and I think the Simba lot is probably going to be Pandora. We'll see, but yeah, DCA needs all the love right now.
That's a different topic for a different time. And by the way, if there's anything that you see in these Disneyland Forward videos that you're curious about, go down in my playlist below and you'll see that I've covered a lot of these topics, and some of them I'll be recovering as more information becomes available to us. But let's get back to talking about how DCA and Disneyland will grow to the west and take over the parking lots.
Hold on.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Here we
Of
go.
course. They have to sneak their way in there.
Put it on the other.
Hey, I have to pull the trigger and just get that YouTube Red or YouTube Premium, whatever it's called. I keep forgetting to do that. I got to do that, man. Because with all these reaction videos, it's kind of a pain in the butt with the ads, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get it done. Absolutely.
The side of it, and how this will not become a bizarre third gate on the western side. So what we're going to do today, as of right now, Disney has sort of teased with us 10 different potential properties that they would like to put into the expansion of Disneyland. I'm going to break down all 10 of those and which park I think that they belong in and their probability of happening, with the rating of A being bet the farm on it, B being like could go either way, and C, I don't think so. And I would like to stress, just because they've predicted these 10 doesn't mean that these are the 10 that will happen. And it doesn't mean that there's not room for something that they haven't predicted. I would believe that there will be some surprises, and they wouldn't tell us everything ahead of time, because that's how Disney does it best. When they take us, sweep us off our feet and go, whoa, we didn't imagine that. But from what we have been told, let's try to imagine how it could all work and its probability of even happening, yay or nay. But before we predict the future of Disneyland, let's jump over to the Pixar Place Hotel to predict the future of Disney California Adventure. When Disneyland Forward brings something over into these parking lots, when
really quick, I just have to just say
Disneyland
something
expands,
before Brickey gets into it. I have to say, I watched his video prior to this recording, and the thing I love about Brickey is he's so. This is going to sound this may be kind of, but he's so human. He's like so down to earth. Like he has this personality of strikes as he's the type of person that he is who he is on whether he's off or on camera.
Well, yeah, no, the authenticity, I think it's the word you're looking for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The authenticity, absolutely. And he's got that realness to him. And that's why we react to so many of his videos, because it's like, as fellow Disney nerds, he hits all the right spots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And oh, that sounded kind of sexy though, didn't it?
Yeah,
A little bit. But no, he does though. He hits all the right. He checks all the boxes as a nerd. I'm like, oh my gosh,
that sounds much better.
There we go. There we go. You know, but it's like, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we talk about like off camera, like on the phone, things like that. A lot of people do. And so that's what makes his content so interesting, is because he sort of touches upon these things that like we're all talking about as fellow nerds. We're all, you know, speculating about. So yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct, George.
Hopefully they won't try to make this one convoluted theme park. That would be a nightmare. Out of the 10 different theme park lands that Disney has already teased, these are the 6 that I feel like would fit in the space behind me, which for simplification is the Pixar Place parking lot. This would be an extension of Disney's California Adventure. The first thing that I think that would go over here would be Avatar. They've kind of already leaked that Avatar would be a part of DCA. If Avatar doesn't go into the parks proper, I would predict that it would be back here. Avatar being over at DCA would be used for balance to offset the demand for Disneyland. Even though most people aren't crazy about Avatar the movies, they somehow sell an endless amount of box office tickets, but nobody identifies outwardly as an Avatar fan. You're out there somewhere, statistics would say. But I do see the high demand that Disney sees for the Pandora Land at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Now that gets into a gray area because Animal Kingdom doesn't have a lot of attractions, but Disney is seeing that Avatar at DCA could help balance out the demand for DCA, putting it a little bit more on par with its rival, Disneyland, because DCA will always be the bridesmaid and never the bride.
Yeah.
And
and that he's right about that, because Disneyland is, I mean, it's the most iconic theme park in the world. It is. It's the first one that Walt Disney enjoyed himself, and it's just such an icon. So DCA will never match that stature. But one thing that I do hope is Disney takes DCA more seriously. Like while I don't think that Disney California Adventure will ever reach the same kind of like legendary status of Disneyland, it's impossible. It's not connected
because of that notion. It's like you don't want Disney to say, oh, let's just throw it in DCA because it's the second theme park to Disneyland.
Thank you. That's what bothers me too. Like a lot of fans are like, oh, you know, who cares? It's DCA. No, that's the wrong mentality, guys. This theme park sits in the shadow of Disneyland. Okay. I want this thing to be as good as it could possibly be. I don't want it to be a hodgepodge. Just because it's not technically Disneyland doesn't mean that you don't give a shit. You have to put the work in and make it equally as good. Like what Tokyo does in Japan, you know, with their second gate, you know, I mean, they try to make the second gate, you know, these two parks comparable. I mean, arguably,
yet at the same time, their second gate is now titled as the best Disney park in the world.
I know, and that's the thing. I was just going to say that their second gate is arguably even better than their main gate, you know, their first gate. But Disney has to start treating DCA like they treat Disneyland. You know, I talk a lot about this, where it's like, if you have a beautiful home, right, and a big front yard, well, if you keep your home immaculate and you are constantly fixing it up and making sure it looks really nice, you don't want to leave a bunch of crap on your front lawn. Well, it's technically not my home. Well, yeah, but it's your front lawn though. You still want to take care of it, right? So same thing with DCA. Like technically it's not Disneyland, but it sits right there next to Disneyland. So let's take care of it and let's make it as close to Disneyland quality-wise that we can. So yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing too, and I hope he touches upon this, because again, I'm watching this for the first time. I'm really curious how they tie the Avatar IP into DCA theme-wise. I agree with him that DCA needs that kind of land, that level of quality to kind of offset the Disneyland demand. I agree with him. I don't know though, and I like Avatar, I do, but I don't know how this fits into DCA though, like theme-wise. And I'm not a huge stickler when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like I think Cars Land fits just fine. I think even Avengers Campus fits fine. You know, you don't have to do a whole lot to tie it into the California theme, but Pandora is a huge stretch. And I hope they find a way to somehow tie that in, but we'll see.
Even though fans are not excited about this, I believe Bob Iger and Disney is. seeing a fully immersive Avatar land as being a big hook for what's to come next. I do predict that if this comes here, it will be a land that will be pushed on one of the furthest edges, because you will have going from the street to where the guests stand, massive show building, lots of rock work. Looks like it could potentially be a water ride. So we're looking at an enormous footprint that would put Avatar on one of the outer edges of this extension of DCA. My personal rating on predictability, Disney has given us 10 of these lands. I'll rank all of them on how predictable I think it is that it will show up. I give Avatar the absolute highest rating, A++. Next on the list, Disney has teased with us a Zootopia. Zootopia feels way more like a DCA property than a Disneyland property. Therefore, Zootopia being in this area makes the most amount of sense if it's not the land that replaces the Hollywood backlot, which is where
you guys know how it is when you buy a new Mac.
Everybody.
Fast at first, and then pretty soon after it starts to slow down.
We're getting there.
ultimately think.
Yeah, and actually, actually this video is what we reacted to like a week ago, I think it was now.
Yeah.
And yeah, like honestly, I think that this is going to be the move. They're going to take, just to reiterate, because not everyone watched that last video. Did. I think there's a high probability, and I agree with Brickey on this, where it's like they're going to take Hollywood land and just completely replace it with Zootopia, because that area is already an urban setting, and you can keep the red car trolley. The monorail would make sense in that environment. You know, if you put some other property in there like an Avatar, you have to work a lot more to transform that area into a nature setting. Something like Zootopia, it's already a city. It's not too much of a transition from a Hollywood land to a Zootopia. It's a lot easier to sort of to change that out, to swap it. So I would think Zootopia is going to be Hollywood land. And actually, Bob Iger said in that Q&A that Avatar is part of the Disneyland Forward thing. So I'm leaning heavily in that symbol lot. Now, technically, if they expand out Hollywood land into the bus load unload area behind Monsters Incorporated, that's technically part of Disneyland Forward. So I guess you can kind of finesse that and say that's Disneyland Forward too, but I don't think that's what's happening.
I don't think so either. And honestly, there were three options that people were kind of leaning to. It was either going to be part of the Simba parking lot, Hollywood land, and even the far-fetched Grizzly Peak. Well, Bob Iger kind of put that to rest because Grizzly Peak is already in the footprints of DCA. So yeah, you're right. That just kind of leaves partially with Hollywood land, because you would have to extend it out through the back lot to the bus loading area. But I think you're right, and I do also agree with Brickey. I feel like that's going to be more towards the Simba parking lot because it gives more breathing room.
Right.
And I also agree with him on this. I truly believe Zootopia has more of a DCA feel than Disneyland Park.
Absolutely. It has more of a Pixar feel than a Disney animation feel, which is kind of funny. But another thing too, real quick before we play the video again, people were predicting Grizzly Peak, and I mean, nothing's impossible. You know what I'm saying? When as nerds, we speculate, and so nothing's off the table. But the thing about that, though, that I never felt was like a realistic like option for Disney for two reasons. Number one, James Cameron. James Cameron isn't going to want Disney to go in there and basically San Francisco his property into Grizzly Peak. He's not going to want an overlay like that. You know what I'm saying? Number one. Number two, if you mess with Grizzly Peak substantially like that and retheme it to Pandora, then you have to go in and address the Grand Californian Hotel. And then you have to go in there and possibly retheme all of that, which is more money. It just doesn't make sense when you have the symbol lot sitting right there and you can just, it's unused. It's easier, way easier.
It would be the best fit for. But Zootopia over here would make sense because the Zootopia that currently exists over in Shanghai, is it Shanghai? Tokyo? Hong Kong? I don't know. Never been. They all blur together in my imagination. But Zootopia is a very tall land.
Really quick. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I love Brickey, because he is like, he could have easily edited that out. He could have easily like got all his facts together, and it's like, no, it's what makes him unique and human and down to earth. It's just like whatever it is. It's one of them. You know, it's just like it's the thing.
It's the thing, that thing over there, that thing.
Skyline facade that urban skyline facade would be nice to put up next to a parking garage or hotel view that you need to make disappear. With Zootopia already being a fan favorite and already being something that we see inside of DCA with the characters, my predictability rating for Zootopia landing here is a B rating because I'm a little unsure if Zootopia is going to make its way out to the West Coast. And if it does, I almost think this might be the perfect solution for the Hollywood backlot. Yeah. Another IP that Disney has just thrown out, maybe we'll build one of these, would be a Toy Story Land.
Oh, now, Toy Story you go, Brickey.
Interesting because we already have.
Oh man, that's yeah. See, this is where, and this is the thing, right? Oh, George, am I going to become the biggest hater right now?
I think you might.
I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the.
No, in all seriousness, I don't hate Toy Story Land. I thought it was a really cute land. I think it's good for what it is. My issue with Toy Story Land being connected to Disneyland Forward in any way is that Disney spent all this political capital, all this political capital and money and time to get the rezoning of these areas. And you're going to put something as low ambition as Toy Story Land in there. Because look, Toy Story Land, when we went this past summer, it was really cute. Slinky Dog is a fun little coaster, but it reminded me of Bugs Land with a roller coaster. To be honest with you,
right?
I think Disneyland Forward needs big stuff. It needs Pandora. It needs a Zootopia. It needs a Wakanda. It needs stuff that's going to blow people away. I'm sorry, Toy Story Land, it would be a sin to waste acreage on that in this property. But you never know. Disney might go there. They might do it. And God, I hope not. And plus, doesn't DCA have enough Pixar?
You would think so. You really do. I mean, I would touch upon a little bit of more IP expanding the horizons, and especially if you're gonna do even more Pixar, there's still so many other IPs part of Pixar.
Come on, exactly. But what worries me is because they have the Pixar Place Hotel sitting there.
That's right? What he's going to touch it. That's what he's going to touch upon.
See, Brickey and I were on the same wavelength, buddy. Same wavelength.
Waymania. We already have Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. So we already have a little bit of Toy Story sprinkled throughout the parks. I feel like if it is going to come as part of Disneyland Forward, it would be in this parking lot because we are next to the Pixar Hotel. And I do see what sits adjacent to the Pixar Hotel to be very important to sell those hotel tickets. Because so far, this is a hotel that they have tried really, really hard on, giving you direct access to a Pixar-themed land.
So what better way to take an hotel than to put an land next to it?
A bonus that would send this hotel over the top. Therefore, I give a Toy Story Land a probability of being placed next to the Pixar Place Hotel. That seems like where it would make the most amount of sense. Or it could be part of what you see when you cross the bridge or tunnel on the other side of the road, on the other side where DCA currently exists, over in Pixar Pier. However, out of everything on my list, I could see Toy Story possibly being something that would go over to Disneyland expansion because it could very well be an interior land. I don't think a Toy Story land or attraction needs an outer edge. I don't think that it makes hotels disappear. So look for this one, if it does get built, to be an interior land or to be something that sits next to the Pixar Place Hotel. My probability rating on Toy Story, I give this one a B. Now, possibly the most abstract thing that Disney has suggested they could build out here would be a Wakanda land. I kind of feel like when they announced that, Disney was way more hot for Avengers, Marvel, and Wakanda. The second Black Panther movie didn't quite live up to its predecessor. The loss of Chadwick Boseman obviously doesn't help with making that IP grow and that sort of feel slightly diminished because he was so fantastic at that role and kind of was the charming part of Black Panther.
That's a good point because that franchise without Chadwick, it's just in terms of like growth potential going forward for that franchise, it makes it harder. It's not impossible, absolutely not impossible, but it does make it harder.
But for me, Chadwick was the heart and soul of that character, the heart and soul of that film. And whether or not it was his own independent film, or whether he was in Infinity War or Endgame or Civil War, I feel like if they do anything with Black Panther, even as Shuri as the Black Panther, not saying that the actress who plays Shuri isn't great, not saying Shuri as a character isn't great, but for me, Black Panther will always be Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fair.
More Marvel in DCA wouldn't be a bad thing, but I would argue the proper space for that would be over in the Hollywood backlot, where there's a bit of a monorail problem, and I think the urban setting of Wakanda could gel well with the monorail stand exactly where it's at. I do think, though, for a Wakanda land to be successful, this would be a land that would have to be pushed on one of the outer edges. With tall sight lines, it could make Anaheim a hotel or a parking lot disappear. But I'm just kind of unsure on what it would be, and is Disney still juiced up enough on Wakanda for it to be a commitment that could go the next 3, 4, 5 decades? That part I don't quite see. Therefore, I give this my lowest rating of a C. But there are 2 properties that I could almost absolutely guarantee you will find their way over to this extension. And I think that these 2 properties will tether together, making one land that could be comparable to the type of escapism that we see when we go into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I'm just a little bit unsure on the placement of these properties. When you come through a tunnel from Pixar Pier, that would be a really great time to reset the audience's expectations. A tunnel leading into an Avatar land would be absolutely perfect. Make the world small before you make it big again. However, I don't think that the transition from the Pixar Pier to Avatar makes a lot of sense when you have the ability to let people go through that tunnel, and when they come out on the other side, it's
chicken strips.
Yeah, chicken strips. Exactly.
Oh geez, there
we go. Yeah, absolutely.
You go to the other side of Pixar Pier and you get chicken strips.
Coco and Encanto.
Oh.
I absolutely think that those 2 IPs will land right here. If for any other reason, they are super popular, they are Pixar, and they tether into the hotel experience, but they best represent the demographics of Southern California.
Right.
And Disney has been trying very, very hard to make everyone feel included and represented.
And we've been saying this for a long time, George. The fact that California Adventure does not have a land dedicated to Latin culture makes no sense to me. I would agree with Brickey. I think Coco, Encanto, if they created a Latin area, and you can have the Latin IPs in that area, almost like a Fantasy Springs, but Latin. Beautiful, amazing. I've said it so many times. You have the outdoor food vendors, you got the smell of the food, you got the beautiful music, and it would just be amazing. Go ahead, George. I do apologize.
No, you're good, bro. And I do love how both Coco and Encanto, one is Disney, one is Pixar, but the cultures, the locations, they're very close to one another. And I follow I follow this, I don't even know if you would call it a channel. I don't know. I think it's part of YouTube, but it's little shorts. And it's this guy who has this like audio talking about how Disney characters and Disney films are interconnected with one another, that you may have missed it, whether it's true or not. And I actually stumbled upon one today of how Encanto and Coco are connected with one another, because the setting of Encanto is in the 1950s.
Okay.
And Coco, which actually was confirmed by the director, Lee Unkrich, at the time, Coco was set in the time era of when the movie was released in 2017. But there's a character in Encanto that you briefly see during the shape-shifting moment. I think it was like the character like shape-shifts into different people. And it actually showed a younger version of Coco.
Oh, interesting.
Miguel's grandmother, which would actually kind of tie in because she was older, but she was still younger than how she is perceived in Coco, which would make sense because it's how many years later, because Encanto was set in the 1950s.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Well, and here's the other thing too. If you make a Latin area, right? If you do like a Latin Fantasy Springs, basically in concept, right? You can add Coco, like Brickey said. You can add Encanto, just like Brickey said. But you can also add maybe the Three Caballeros. You know what I'm saying? Now, maybe the Three Caballeros don't get a massive presence in the land because it is an older IP, and we know that Bob Iger's against that right now. We heard him say that at the Q&A. Unfortunately, he shouldn't have said that. But I think if you had Coco and Encanto, you sprinkle in some Three Caballeros in there, you have a solid little Latin area, and it's perfect for DCA. And that transition, like Brickey's talking about, when you go to Pixar Pier and you transition and you hit Coco, that's how you do it. That's a great transition.
In the parks, and these two IPs would do that with a home run. Coco and Encanto, anytime they've had any sort of showings in the park, they have been wildly popular in Southern California. Why not give the locals a land? Why not give the locals a place that they could really celebrate heritage and these two IPs? If Toy Story doesn't show up, I would predict that this would be the IP that's right next to the Pixar Place Hotel. You could pop out a side entrance and boom, there you are. You're in the world of Encanto and Coco. However, if Toy Story does show up, there could be a way where Toy Story's next to the hotel, then you sort of transition through woods that get you over into Coco and Encanto. That takes you through the tunnel over to Pixar Pier. There could be a scenario from the Incredicoaster to this hotel right here. You could go from one Pixar property to another, and then eventually when they do the backside of the lagoon, Jump Jump Jelly, Goofy Flight School, I'm talking to you kids, when that area gets transformed into Pixar, there could be a massive, massive Pixar footprint in DCA. I don't think that would be a bad thing. Coco and Encanto, A+ rating for predictability of landing here in DCA. If there's anything that I would bet the farm on, it's those properties. And it is going to be super important for Disney to make decisions on what's next to these hotels. Because right now, the Pixar Place Hotel has a very, we'll say, budget entryway into DCA. You have to cross the street, you go down a winding path. It is about the least thing from magical. But to really get people excited about this hotel and to truly make it a Pixar experience, imagine if you could exit from the side of this hotel and go straight into Pixar theming.
And here's the thing, and I'm telling you right now, here is the thing. He's right. If you have direct access into DCA, that's gonna bolster the appeal for this hotel. Just the fact that this hotel is going to be looming over theme park, actual theme park now, like right there. This hotel is going to be, if it stays long term, I don't know. I'm not really convinced about that. I think it feels a little placemaker-ish to me. But assuming it's going to be here for the next 20 or 30 years, this hotel, the price is going to skyrocket because now you're going to have a theme park view pretty much anywhere in that hotel. You're right over all the theme park, and you're probably going to get that entrance into the park itself. So look for the prices on this one to skyrocket.
That late night access or late night parties, first thing in the morning access, that could really move the needle on selling tickets here. It could also move the needle on how much they could charge for hotel rooms.
There it is.
Hotel rooms. Brickey, they don't sell tickets for hotels. They sell tickets for theme parks. You sell rooms at hotels. Spoken like a true local that will never probably stay here. But out of the 10 potential properties that they have already teased us with, those are the 6 that fit in the DCA expansion. Let's hop over to the Disneyland parking lot so I can tell you the 4 that I think would be intended for there, but some of them I think are red herrings. So currently there have been 4 predictions that I feel could be applicable to an expansion of Disneyland. But out of these 4, I really only feel like one of them is a sure thing. So the first one is one that I hear you all talk about a lot in the Disneyland Forward series. What about Tron? And Disney has teased Tron. Let me give you a quick synopsis on why I think Tron is a no-go. It is huge. I mean, an absolutely huge footprint. And it is an attraction that lasts 1 minute.
Here's the thing though. I'm gonna push back on Brickey a little bit with the size issue, right? Because he's right. I mean, the footprint for the Disney World and the Shanghai Tron attractions are huge, right? But you could have made the same argument though with Tower of Terror before it went into DCA. Well, the footprint's huge. It can't fit into DCA because that footprint at Hollywood Studios is massive.
Right.
but they reconfigured and redesigned the building to fit DCA. So I think you could redesign Tron in a way that could fit into Disneyland Resort somehow, some way. Now, here's the thing. I used to be bullish on Tron coming to the Disneyland Resort. I'm not anymore. I think it's cool for Magic Kingdom. I think it's cool for Shanghai. My issue with Tron, though, is it's a little more... What's the word for it? Like, they haven't really maintained it. Like, I don't know if you've seen a lot of pictures of it lately. It's dirty. It kind of has the same problem that the Incredicoaster has, is what I'm trying to say here. It hasn't aged well, and it's not that old, is what I'm saying.
So I'm going to give a little bit of pushback from you giving pushback on Brickey. Just a little.
Here we go. Here we go.
So I do get your point of like with the Tower of Terror. And yes, Disney is capable of doing whatever they want to do. I mean, look what they did with Galaxy's Edge with rerouting the rivers of America. So no one can ever say that Disney is, they can do something. They could do whatever they set their minds to it. Now, when speaking about the footprint in the comparison of Tower of Terror and Tron, the only thing that I would say was a little bit more lenient towards Tower of Terror is the building structure went upward.
Well, that's true.
Where Tron is more horizontal, where it takes up more of that area.
You're right. It's a great point. And he mentions it too. It's a short ride already. So what are you going to do now when you shorten it at Disneyland Resort? It's going to be, 20 seconds, So fair point.
Wrote it out at the Magic Kingdom. It is on my list of one and done rides. It did not make me feel good. It's pretty awesome. It's actually very, very cool. But the amount of real estate and the return on investment that Tron offers, it's perfect for Magic Kingdom.
Here we go.
Oh man, I'm really feeling this one.
Yeah. Look at that, man.
Inspiration? Shop Ralph's.
Fancy
for
pants.
30,000 mouth-watering choices.
All right, here we go.
Plus,
it's perfect for sure.
Wait, you don't have? Do you have Ralph's in Pennsylvania?
No.
You don't have Ralph's? Oh, look, see, you got a little window into California life. Ralph's.
Yeah. Those are big parks with a lot of room to grow. That is not what Anaheim is. So if Tron were to come to the West Coast, it would fit in Tomorrowland better than it would fit out here. But quite honestly, I don't think that it fits anywhere. And I think that they were just looking for a imaginative, sort of futuristic roller coaster to give people an example of what.
I will say that I agree with Brickey. I think if they were to put Tron somewhere, I would put it more towards Tomorrowland. Right. And at this point, Tomorrowland needs help. So if they wanted to knock out a few extra buildings for just that one attraction alone, and it's something that could help Tomorrowland in the long run, I say go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you guys both make great points, and we'll see. It also depends on how much it's moved the needle for Magic Kingdom, right? If internally those numbers have been really good for Disney, they got what they wanted out of that, like the return on investment, then we might see them maybe try to shoehorn that into Tomorrowland some way, somehow. But yeah, I would agree with Brickey on this. So I don't think it's coming here. I really don't. I think it was like something that they put out there. It's kind of like, hey, the possibilities, kind of use your imagination kind of thing, but they had no real intention of actually bringing it out here.
It could come out here, but my rating for Tron being something that happens on the West Coast is a C. I don't believe it. I don't think that it fits. I don't think that it works. And I think Disney is thinking the same as me, which leaves us with only 3 more IPs that could fit into the parking lot space behind me, which would be an extension of Disneyland, where you would go from the end of Critter Country and find your way over into more Disneyland. They have Teased, the trio that is Tangled, Peter Pan, and Frozen, which is just lazy. It's just them taking the concept art that they already had for Fantasy Springs and being like, we could do something like this. And I understand why they showed that to people, because what does happen behind me will very much be like Fantasy Springs that we're seeing opening later this year. It will be a tunnel or a bridge that will get small, and then on the other side, open you up into more fantasy, more Disney. But I don't think that Peter Pan will get replicated at Disneyland because the original opening day classic is one of the most beloved attractions in all of the Disneyland Resort. It's the ride you try to ride last at night. I don't see them making a second Peter Pan at this park.
Yeah,
it would go against the principles, the legacy that is Disneyland. I think they would use that space for something that's not Peter Pan. Peter Pan, I give you a C, my lowest ranking. And Tangled, I see Tangled as being an interior land. Peter Pan, what we saw out in Fantasy Springs and Hong Kong, Chokio, San Francisco, is pushed up against the edge. It takes an enormous amount of space. That's another reason why I don't think they would give up this precious land for more Peter Pan. Now, Tangled, that's a fresh IP, not represented in the park, and Tangled can very much be an interior land or a transitional land that takes one story and slowly bends it into the other. It's just not that big. Therefore, like Toy Story, I give it a B probability. And speaking of Toy Story, it could maybe go over here because it's so beloved, but I kind of feel like it just fits more with DCA and the Pixar Hotel. Which brings us to Frozen World of Arendelle, which I do believe highest rating, A+, would go in this parking lot behind me.
And this is the thing I have a problem with not the land. I think the land in Hong Kong is beautiful, gorgeous. You know what I'm saying?
It's the location.
Well, it's weird because it's such a fantasy land area that it almost feels like if you put Frozen Arendelle over there, it almost feels like a second fantasy land to me. It doesn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? And that's, I kind of, man, even Fantasy Springs would feel that way to me. If you did some, it doesn't matter what IP you put into those.
If you did a trio of a domestic version of Tokyo with a IP trio, whether it's Frozen, Tangled, Peter Pan, whether it's Frozen, Tangled, and Moana, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, no matter what you do, it's separating it from Fantasyland.
It feels Fantasyland to me, unless they can spin that like our friend Florentine suggested.
Exactly,
friend of the channel suggested doing a Nature Springs where you do the Jungle Book, Lion King, and some of these other IPs, and it's not fantasy based; it's more like nature based or something like that. I'm open for something like that. But if you go full Fantasy Springs and you just have 3 fairy tale properties in there, it's Fantasyland 2.0. And now the park feels disconjointed. It doesn't disjointed. It doesn't feel you're kind of like, it's a lot of redundancy is what I'm trying to say here. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work. If you're going to do Fantasy Springs, put it in the submarines and where the motorboat area is, and connect it to the actual Fantasyland.
I believe he mentions that too.
Oh, see, here we go. Same wavelength, Brickey. Same wavelength.
It fits sort of the requirements. The shape of it would make the parking lot go away, the homes go away. A big show building over here would give room then for more attractions to go on the other side of it. Frozen is very much a Disneyland type quality IP. It's been nonstop popularity since it came out. I just think that it's such a good fit with Disneyland. And like many of you, I always thought Frozen would go on the other side of the Matterhorn, in the area where the old motorboats were at, and kind of grow over towards where the Carousel of Progress building is. But now that I see the way that they could make Tomorrowland grow over towards the Esplanade, and with the way that I have seen Frozen built out as its own land and the other theme parks, I don't know. It just feels
and I just want to touch upon something really quick that I heard that now it kind of reminded me when he said build Tomorrowland out over by the Esplanade. I thought that was kind of interesting because essentially when you add more capacity of room to where that bus loading area is, and a lot of people are thinking, they could push back for the backlot area.
DCA,
of DCA, but could they essentially push back the opposite end for Tomorrowland?
They could. In theory, they could. I wouldn't do that because Tomorrowland, it's already hard enough to find stuff to put in that land right now as it is. So are you going to make it bigger? And now you have even a bigger problem. You have a bigger bowl to fill, basically. Because look, Star Wars and Marvel already have their own lands, right? I mean, you can technically put a Star Wars ride in Tomorrowland.
Unless they do that for Tron.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's what they do for Tron. I would much rather them push it out for DCA. DCA needs it more.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, but that is an option. I never thought about that, and he's absolutely right on that. They could go in that direction,
And then it checks that other box of the equation. It fits really well next to the Disneyland Hotel. That is an important part of whatever comes over here, because think about it. By the time you would walk from the hotel all the way back to where you were, it's a really, really long haul, unless Disney offers you a shortcut.
We're here at Sprouts, sharing unique.
There you go.
What I like about Sprouts, it's quality.
Wait. Do you have Sprouts in PA?
No.
Oh, see, you're learning all about California.
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
Joey. It's a California adventure.
The Fantasy Tower right over into your own fantasies, whatever's built right on the other side of here. So I do think that the hotels will have a lot of influence on the lands that are built adjacent to them, which makes me think somewhere in the ballpark of a Fantasy Springs is what we're looking at for this parking lot. Not a Tron, but also not a Peter Pan. Maybe.
And it's funny how he mentioned that the hotels could be an influence of which land they're walking into. And that kind of brings me to the conclusion that we were talking about. Could they potentially put Moana in that section? Because adjacent to the Disneyland Hotel, you have Trader Sam's, has more of that Hawaiian, Polynesian culture.
Right.
It segues right into Moana. And as you said before, Moana kind of has that Fantasyland, but yet Adventureland side. Like, she can be kind of placed anywhere. So it's not necessarily where, if it is separate from Adventureland or it is separate from Fantasyland, I feel like something with Moana would make sense.
Well, and if you did a Fantasy Springs type of land based around like a Moana, right? You can make a giant volcano instead of the Neverland mountain range,
right?
And that would work. So there's potential there, absolutely. So a lot of interesting stuff from Brickey. I will link his video down below. Follow, subscribe to him. He does amazing stuff. He's a nerd like us, and that's why it's fun kind of reacting to his videos, because he stimulates the imagination. As a nerd, it gets all the creative juices flowing, and we can kind of speculate on it. So it was a really great video by Brickey. Big shout out to him again. And I don't know. I think that this is gonna be very interesting to see how it all pans out. But please don't do Toy Story Land and DCA. There's so much Pixar already. And if you're gonna do Pixar, do Coco, do these other Pixar properties that aren't so already overused. I don't know. And Toy Story Land is so not ambitious enough, I think. But we'll see. You know what? Maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe it'll be better than the one in Florida. We'll see. But any final thoughts, George, before we take off today?
Lots of high points from Brickey. A lot of stuff that we agreed upon. Some things that we can see differently. But as you had said, OG, that's we're the Disney nerds. We're the Disney geeks. We love that kind of stuff. We love talking the in-depth stuff of just kind of like letting the creative juices flow, as you always say. So I thought it was a great video. Everyone, please check out the Hey Brickey video. Like it, subscribe, smash that notification bell, and also do it for right here on OG55. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and definitely comment down below on anything that you have seen today, any ideas, opinions, thoughts. We love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and we have a date with the one and only Tones from the Bad Thoughts podcast. So we got to get out of here, George. We got to get out of here. We got a live show to do with Tones and Mr. Michael Webber. So everybody, thank you so much for watching OG55. Smash that like button, comment down below, and as always, have a great day. Bye-bye.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.